Hi, I am totally dangerously recording this video while I'm driving my car, and it's right at dusk, so the lighting's terrible, but something's on my mind and I can't stop thinking about it. And I was getting out my phone at a stoplight because I was like, oh, I'm gonna put on my to-do list to make a video about this, and instead I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna record it right now while these thoughts are fresh on my mind and allow you to hear me think out loud about this topic. The topic is tough love for teens. Here's the thing. I don't believe that tough love works. I don't think it's actually a thing. I think that a lot of times people use the word tough love to cover up the fact that they're just being mean, rude, and disrespectful. And we think it's okay with teenagers because we've written this whole story that teenagers are rude and disrespectful. But the reality is that teens are like toddlers. Their brains are in a orchestra of hormones. They're just moving a million miles in a million directions all at once. The problem is they're in gigantic bodies, so it feels really dangerous. However, they've already had over a decade of time on this planet to master their physical body and to learn communication skills and feel like they're fairly successful at taking care of themselves. And this is true in varying degrees, depending on the teenager, depending on their, the experiences that they had as children, in preschool and elementary school age, to begin to develop actual skills that build their independence, actual skills that take care of their physical needs. However, I do believe that no matter where along that spectrum a teenager is, they really deserve our respect. And more than respect, they deserve our compassion and understanding, and they deserve deep listening, and they deserve unconditional love. And none of these things are expressed when we do what we call quote unquote tough love. So here's a couple of examples of what I've seen happen lately. This was a couple of years ago, and I still regret the fact of that I did not actually respond in a stronger way about this particular situation. It was actually a Facebook post that I read, and my friend was posting on her Facebook page that her daughter was not wearing her helmet when she was skateboarding, and that she had tried to put her foot down about it and said, you have to wear your helmet when you skateboard. And then friends or different people around town had said that they had seen her out on her skateboard without a helmet on. And the responses, there were 20, maybe 30 responses to this post, all telling her she needed to do things like ground her daughter, take away the skateboard, not give her the freedom to do what she wanted on the weekends, all the way down to if you just, basically ignore her, give her the cold shoulder, all these things, removing love and connection as a means of punishment is called trauma. It's terrible. It's horribly wounding. And when we do these kinds of things to our teens, we are losing their trust. Trust goes two ways. Trust isn't something we earn. Trust is something that we actually develop, something that happens as a result of a close bond and close, healthy attachment. And when you can trust each other, it means that you trust your teen, and therefore your teen trusts you. But when you have lost that foundation of trust because you have now punished your teen or taken away a privilege or a loss of connection, well, to be quite honest, like I said, they feel really confident in their ability to meet their own needs. So they're probably just going to go around you. This is where sneaking happens. This is where lying happens. This is where our teens kind of take matters into their own hands. The second example of this is a friend whose teen is a little bit older. Oops. The second example of this is a friend whose teen is a little bit older, and she has already moved away and goes to college and is now spending her first summer living in the city where she goes to college, and is having a bit of a tough time, struggled through school, got pretty bad grades this year, and now is finding that living on her own is more expensive than she expected. She got a number of really expensive parking tickets, and she's struggling to get a job. And so this friend of mine felt like she really needed to like lean in on her kid and tell her, like, put the pressure on her, being like, you have to try harder to get a job, and giving her a lot of advice and pressure about what it takes to be successful. And unfortunately, this child became so overwhelmed that she went into a really dark place. And I will talk more about that in another video, because unfortunately, I think a lot of our teens are struggling with depression, anxiety, to the extent that many of them are causing self-harm, or turning inward and losing connections to others, and going into a lack of ability to actually care for themselves because of these mental illnesses that are often accumulation of feeling overwhelmed and feeling all the pressure and external expectations that they just feel are impossible to meet. And so in this case, I am just feeling a lot of compassion, both for the parent and for the child. Obviously, compassion for the child starts with the fact that this child feels like she can't do anything right. She feels like there's nothing she can do that will ever meet the expectations of her parents and teachers, and she's feeling like a failure. And that's heartbreaking. And I feel compassion for the parent, because as a parent, we just feel like we've got to do everything we can to make sure our kids are successful. And when they're not, we often take it really personally, and it can feel like a reflection of our lack of good parenting. But it also feels like crushing and scary when our children are in that place of overwhelm and there's nothing we can do for them. And we've been told, I do believe that the majority of us have heard that that's when we need to be the toughest, right? That's when we need to push the hardest, when we need to really like tell our kids to kind of get their shit together or else. And we don't have a lot of messages around how to hold compassionate space for our kids to go through tough stuff, how to be that loving presence, how to hold that unconditional love, how to offer offer support that comes from a place of like love and connection, instead of that place of like punitive punishment and authority. And so, this parent was just at a loss, and so I don't blame anybody for this situation. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I'm finding that people are really shocked when I tell them that I don't force my teen to do anything. And I really mean that. Like, I don't force my teen to do anything. There are moments when I encourage her to step out of her comfort zone. And those are often moments when I learn just how wrong I was about what her needs are. And so this comes from a conversation I had with a family that I'm coaching right now. They have young children, almost 2 and almost 4 years old. two children, and I've been coaching them, and I've been using a lot of examples of what I'm going through with my teen, because a lot of times how I handled things when my kids were toddlers and preschoolers impacts our relationship now. And they're honestly, often a lot of them are the same techniques that I use both with toddlers and with teenagers. And so when I talk about things like, finding out what my child's needs are socially, that's when this actually came up, was because they were like, we just really want our 3-year-old to have friends. And so we're trying to find out how we can cause him to act in a way that will attract more kids to be friends with him. And I said, hey, it sounds like you're both really socially, naturally socially people. And I'm wondering if you found that your child is actually really motivated in social situations. Like, does he want to have a lot of friends? And I said, for example, my teenager has been really clear that she is happy with 3 to 5 friends. She doesn't want more friends than that. She doesn't like being in social situations where she's surrounded by large groups of people. And a current example that I gave them was that there was a summer camp that fit her interests perfectly and was right around the corner from my house. And it was, this camp seemed like so much fun and such a cool opportunity for her to meet some more kids. And she did actually humor me in stepping outside her comfort zone to go through the application process and do the tour and look at the camp. And when it came time to pay the tuition and actually sign up, she said, nah, I don't really want to do that camp. And I was devastated. I was totally heartbroken, and I just couldn't understand why she didn't want to do the camp. I was coming up with all these reasons, when the reality was that I had to really look inside myself and realize I wanted to do the camp. And I was willing to spend thousands of dollars to send her to this camp that I wanted to go to. And when I actually listened to her, again, when I allowed that trust to be a two-way street, she was really clear with me that was not her desires. It wasn't really her scene. And I got to save thousands of dollars. I lost the money I had to put down with the deposit just for the application, but that's okay because it was a good process to go through. And I do think she learned a lot even from just going on the tour. It'll help us with going on college tours. It kind of normalized that experience for her, and I think that's going to be really helpful. But I listened to her. She doesn't want to go to the camp, and I said, that's fine. And these parents actually said to me, well, do you ever coach parents with teenagers, like that they should just make their teenager do something? Like, you could have just made her go, because I had expressed I thought it would be good for her. And it was funny, I got caught off guard by this question, and I was like, would I tell another family to make their teen do something they don't want to do? And this is where I kind of went on this long tangent about how, it is important to kind of build this kind of trust that your teenager will trust you to step into something that they're not sure about. But that it is really also important to reciprocate that respect and trust. And if they do step into that situation and they're still really clear that it's not for them, that it's okay. It's okay to say, I hear you. It's okay to say you don't like it and you don't have to do it. And I just talked to a friend about this, and she said the same thing. She's very athletically engaged and motivated as a kid, and so she's put her children into sports at a young age, and some particular sports her kids are like, I don't like this. And she, she's kind of got that old school thing in her that says, your team is counting on you, you can't quit, you've got to stick it out through the whole season. And then realizing oh, that's me. That's my approach to sports. That's how I feel about engaging, on a team. And it's okay if my kid says, I don't like soccer, or this team's not for me. It's okay to change your mind. And it's okay when our kids change our minds, and we can listen to them and provide them with that space. That is actually what continues to build and cultivate that trust. It's giving our children the space to express how they're feeling, and actually listening to them and making shifts, even if it means we've invested time and money in something and they've decided they don't like it. And that's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing for us as adults what would I even call that? It's the hardest thing for us as adults, I guess, to admit failure in some ways, or to allow for that loss of time and money. And so if you're in that moment, I would just say, like, it's not a loss. Like, the time and money went into allowing your child to feel into the contrast of life. You have to know what you don't like in order to know what you do like. And so our children are going to have a lot of experiences. And if they feel like you are a trusted person for them to explore the world with, they'll be able to have a multitude of experiences and find their way to their own unique passions, which will lead them to their own unique purpose and give them the opportunity to step into, potentially step into work as an adult that's really fulfilling for them, as well as lucrative, as well as enjoyable, as well as something that they feel like they can be really proud of, and not just because it's something that we wanted them to do and they stuck it out. There's too many people in our generation who did things because their parents wanted them to, like become a doctor or a lawyer. We were just watching Queer Eye last night. Spoiler alert, in the new season, there's a guy who became a lawyer because that's what his dad wanted him to do. And when he finally got a position at a law office and he hated it, and he told them, I don't like it here, they were actually going to give him a full-time position. But then when he was like, I don't even like it, they were like, never mind, you don't get a position. So he opened up a deli. Oh, stop sign with a blinking red light. This has been funny lighting on this drive. Anyway, now he's living his passion. He's running a deli. He's been doing it for 15 years. He's super successful, but he said he has low self-esteem as a 50-year-old because his parents didn't approve of his choice to do something he loved. So let's think about that when we give our teens tough love. Man, tough love really is just not nice. And love and compassion and unconditional love and honesty and trust comes from allowing our children to make mistakes, comes from allowing our children to disappoint us, for goodness sakes, comes from just saying, like, I got your back, no matter what. So I guess that's my rant for now. It's completely dark. Now I'm passing some beautiful farmland at dusk out here, and I will catch my breath and be safe and continue my drive. Sending you all lots of love from the dark nights of Vermont. Peace and love. Bye. Talk to you soon.